Hello,
Hello.
and welcome to the show. I'm here with Husky. Daniel's having some Xbox problems at the moment, so he wasn't able to join us for this challenge. Anyway, today we are going to be messing about with some very silly B cars. B-class cars. There we go. That's what I'm talking. It's late. It's late-ish anyway. We're going to see how high we can get on the leaderboard with some completely impractical cars. This idea came to me. Somebody tweeted me about, I don't know, they were lapping a transit somewhere, and I wondered how high could we get up on the leaderboards with some completely ridiculous cars. So me and Husky have built 3 different cars. We're going to try 3 different tracks, and we'll see what we can do. Now, the track selection isn't the most exciting track selection. We had to pick tracks that we hadn't been around already, so that our times with these cars would go on the board. Also, of course, we're having to do clean laps, so no, we can't be racing each other. We've got to be separated on the track to do some clean laps. Anyway, up first, Husky has got a Chevy Nova.
Yes, I built this 66 Nova for a community race a while ago. And believe it or not, it's one of the better handling muscle cars in my collection. It only has 350 horses from the 5.4 litre V8 with 360 pounds of torque, but it only weighs 2,900, which for a muscle car is not that bad. I think the only thing lighter is the Dart. I think
the Dart and my car that's about to come up later is considerably lighter.
That muscle car were quite good. It does not have the top speed. Unlike most muscle cars, it tops out about 100 and you get about 130 and you're really asking it. But I really love this track going around here with the Nova. It's very flowing.
Yeah, this is a really good track. Both of us hadn't really driven this track much at all.
No.
And it's a really good fun track to drive.
I think the only time I ever drove this track was for one of the event listings. You have to drive it.
Yeah,
it's the only time I've ever driven it. That and the slidey Datsuns.
Single-player events.
Oh, the spinny Datsuns.
Yeah, we might have done the slidey Datsuns around here. I can't remember. But it's a really good track. I do recommend you give it a go. You do want a car with a bit of grip, a bit of downforce, to really get the most out of this very fast-flowing track. And the reason why we're saying muscle cars in B-class tend not to have a lot of top speed is if you build them how we tend to build them, which is you put all of the handling parts on them, you don't have very much room for engine upgrades. If you want to go for leaderboard times, if you want to go for your fastest overall lap time, you need a lot of grip, so you need a lot of handling parts. Sure, if you built this car very differently, you could get an awful lot of speed out of the thing in B-class.
I know you can get them a lot faster, just that is more handling based. They don't have, the only aero it has on it is the bonnet.
Yeah, and that doesn't really that doesn't add much downforce. Anyway, we come on to my first car. It is the most useless muscle car of all time in the most hideous colour. It cannot be classed as a muscle car. No, that is true. It is barely classed as a car. It's terrible. Or standard, it's terrible. I also want to know how many they sold in this colour. It's the most...
the salmon pinky faded orange look.
It's terrible. It's really terrible.
I like the fact that it has all the stickers on it.
Yeah, the red lines work when the car's black. When it's this colour, doesn't work at all. Don't get me wrong, I like the silly colours, you know, like your purple Hemi Cudas. It works on them because it's such a silly colour on a silly car that it all comes together quite well. But
they don't look that bad in bright banana yellow.
Yeah, exactly. But this thing is terrible. However, I did build it up to B class. We're going to give it a go. This car weighs 2,300 pounds, which is really rather light. For what it is. It only has 232 horsepower. I think it's the least powerful car here. I'm fairly sure it's the least powerful car here. Not a lot of power, but it doesn't weigh very much. It actually has 344 torques, which surprised me that it has 4.9 litres. It surprised me that it had that many more torques than horsepower. It is the standard engine, but no, this thing's even slower than the Nova. It really is not particularly fast in a straight line, not very good accelerating, but it's not bad through the corners. Now, all things considered, it's not the worst car I've driven in B class, and that is saying something.
There are worse cars.
This is a King Cobra. Yeah, there are worse cars. It's an alright thing to drive. It's not. I wouldn't take this online lobby racing, because unless it's a really tight, twisty track, you will just get mugged everywhere in a straight line, because it really is very slow. But through the corners, to give it some credit, it wasn't terrible. It was a lot better than I was expecting it to be. However, I may possibly have
you
had
have
a
an
little
accident?
incident with the wall. I may have got a little bit sideways and over the curb, and I may have spun it and broken
Oh,
bits. But that's not too important.
You've improved the
we had
looks.
a few brushes. Yeah, I've improved the looks when it goes away from the camera and you can't see it. That's when it looks best. There we go, just at the end. Anyway, up next we move to the Sunset Club Circuit with a very wobbly Mercedes.
Lordy lord, this thing. I nearly killed the cameraman there as well. I was like, die,
I
cameraman.
think you may have got the wall. I think you may have snagged the wall.
No, that was the time where I was, yeah, and over we go. That sort of set the tone for this run, really. I was trying to build a silly car, so I saw that 300 SEL and I thought, brilliant. It weighs. It has no weight reduction, I don't think. I think the engine parts give it its weight. It weighs 3,869 pounds on stock suspension with a 6.5 litre. I have no idea what this engine is. I really need to Google it because it does sound like a V8. It has 412 horses with 510 foot-pounds of torque, but the standard suspension was a saviour and a killer because it for some reason in some corners it would plant the car a little better, but if you did so much as breathe on any of those apexes, you are going over. And it wouldn't go over in a spectacular rolling fashion. It would just slowly flop over and onto its roof, and then you couldn't do anything.
Yeah, it's quite amusing to watch this car going through the corners on that suspension because it bounces all over the place. Yeah, it's through there. It's also terrifying, I would imagine, going through there leaning that much.
Just a little bit.
In that car. Because these aren't slow in a straight line. Both these cars we built, you'll see me in the background in my Raptor. These are more straight line speed cars. This track is the fastest we're going to visit, so we were using straight line speed cars. They are pretty quick. They'll do 150 down the main straight. Coming into that first corner in rather silly cars. You see me in the background going on two wheels everywhere. Yeah, it's quite scary because again these aren't the most controllable. I tried to put aero
on it to kind of control some of the rolling. It didn't really work though. I put the silly spotlights on it.
So my vehicle of choice is a Ford Raptor. I actually saw one of these in England, amazingly, as I fall over.
Where did you see that?
I saw it in its natural habitat, the petrol station. I'm not joking. I was in Milton Keynes and I drove past the petrol station and there was a Ford Raptor lording it over everything else.
I was going to say, how do you drive that on English roads? It just...
Oh god, I wouldn't want to drive it down some of the narrow country roads around here.
No, thank you.
But anyway, back to the game. This car has got 556 horsepower. It's got the Mustang V8 in it. It's rear-wheel drive converted. I've put it on race tyres, on race suspension. I tried to lower the suspension as much as I could to try and avoid rolling. It didn't work. I still had to avoid the curbs like the plague.
It's still about 6 foot tall.
Yeah. Admittedly, that was me forgetting where the apex was more than avoiding the curves. You had to play a very dangerous game with these cars. If you want to get any speed out of them, of course you have to try and aim for the apex, but you also have to try and avoid the curves. It was an interesting compromise you had to kind of try and go through to try and not roll these things over. That's part of the fun of Sunset. Again, we had to pick slightly obscure tracks. Ideally, we wouldn't want to be running these cars around here because they're too likely to roll, but we needed tracks that we hadn't got any leaderboard times on, and I don't think I've driven this layout of this track very often. One advantage of the Raptor over the Mercedes is when you clatter that sort of road on the banked sort of turn, if you clatter that in the Mercedes, because it's so bouncy, it scrapes.
It bottoms out and then you lose about 5 miles an hour just from the scraping.
Yeah. Which doesn't help. Whereas in this thing, even with the lowered race suspension, it's still got plenty of ride height, so I could attack that kind of corner as much as I liked. Either way, both cars are very quick in a straight line. Very difficult to control through the corners, and you're having to be very wary of all of the curves. And again, I wasn't having very much luck with that first corner. It's very hard getting this thing stopped. We go on to our final track, the Sedona Club Circuit, with Husky and El Camino.
This thing, I have to say, now I do know why they are not competitive in any of the versus the community we do. I know I ran one and I forgot how bad it was, and I was like, yeah, I will run this. It's silly. I mean, it's once again standard weight pretty much. It weighs 3,500 pounds near enough, has 515 horses, 573 foot-pound of torque from a 7.7 V8. And I built this, it was mainly as a straight line speed car, but it don't even really do the straight line speed. The cornering just is that bad that any time you will gain in the straight line speed is all wasted as soon as you get to a corner. It will either not stop, because it's so heavy, you can be on the brakes pretty hard, it's just not slowing down. And they are race brakes. I put full handling on it to try and, yeah, there you go, understeering a bit. I tried to kind of,
on this track.
Yeah, kind of tried to balance out a bit of the handling. Even with full race, it still slid everywhere. But it would either understeer off, or you'd try and put the tiniest amount of power on, and because there's no weight of the rear wheels being a pickup truck, you just spin them up. You just light up the tyres and waste all your time. And that first corner was absolutely terrifying. Yep, there you go.
There's the El Camino doing its normal thing of sliding.
They make
everywhere.
absolutely brilliant drift cars, I will say that. They make brilliant drift cars. Not so good as a race car. I can't recommend one. But because going through this track, it was an absolute handful, and it was very scary.
Yeah, this track. There we go, wide again. This track's not the hardest track. It's not the tightest. Not the twistiest of race tracks. But yeah, there are still plenty of corners to contend with. And just watching this, the El Camino is all over the place. I mean, these are properly race-built cars. You know, they'll have. And yeah, it was rather difficult to keep that thing under control.
And the soccer mom appears to have found herself on the track.
This was the biggest surprise of pretty much any car I've ever built, I think. It's a Nissan Versa. It has the engine from a Nissan Silvia. It's only got 263 horsepower, 213 torques, and weighs just under 3,000 pounds. It shouldn't work as a race car. There is no reason this thing should be particularly good. However, it is really rather good, and I can't tell you why.
It was like really sadly faster than my El Camino.
I can't think of any reason why this car should be as quick as it is, but it is. When we were testing these cars, I build my cars around Iberia, and I go for a test there regularly, as I like that track. It's a good track for building cars on. A while ago, some of you might remember we did a Tuner Tuesday competition on Iberian, where we got the Stig driving some cars around there. The car I built, a Scion FRS, did a 58.4, I believe, around that track, being driven by the Stig. Me, in testing with this car, did a 58.2. That gives you a kind of an idea of how quick this car is. It really is a very, very good car. It has good straight line speed, good acceleration. It launches incredibly well. And it has so much grip through the corners. If you are a little bit silly, it has a bit of oversteer that can be quite annoying. However, with all of these cars, we only spent sort of 5 minutes building them. You know, might have adjusted the gear ratios a little bit, but we didn't spend massive amounts of time tuning. And for this actual challenge, we only had 10 minutes with each of the cars to get the fastest lap we could. It's all so that we don't spend forever trying to perfect stuff. Otherwise, these videos would take years to film. But yeah, even with all of that, if I spent a while tuning this thing and getting it proper, I think it would be a really serious contender for a B-class car. Because it's so fast, and it shouldn't be. It doesn't make sense to me why this thing is so quick. But yeah, it really is a rather impressive thing.
For reasons of physics.
For what it is.
Oh lord, we're back to the slide
Husky
shot.
gave up trying to do fast laps and went for a slide.
Yeah, I got bored. Eventually, I was pushing that hard that I was just, I was basically causing more mistakes. So I decided to do what the El Camino wanted to do, which was go sideways
so see
everywhere.
how difficult this El Camino is, and how they've never done well in the versus the community. I'm going to set you viewers a challenge. I'm going to ask or wonder if any of you can build a B-class El Camino that is actually competitive in B-class. Now, if you do take up this challenge, if you want to go and have a go, see if you can build one of these, see if you can tune one of these and set it up correctly, I'm going to put a little section on the forums for submitting these. If you put it on your storefront, at some point in the future, in the next couple of weeks, we will have a look and see how they do. Anyway, it's on to the leaderboards, and here we are. This is for the first round at the Alps. As you can see, Huskies Nova did a 127.5, or near enough, and that's not bad actually. 3,481st. All things considered, I'd say that's pretty good.
Just behind, just
Yeah,
in front of the Civic,
you're
I
just in
think.
front of an Impala. You're miles behind a Civic. I was half a second. Where's I got? I've
I
lost
can't
it.
see.
More
Oh,
than
yeah.
that. Yeah, no, it's about half a second behind. I can read, honest. In 4,200th. Still, considering I'm driving a goddamn King Cobra that's terrible, I'd say that wasn't too bad. In this instance, sure, that these cars were never likely to do particularly well. I was surprised though how high we both were up on the leaderboards. We move on to the times at sunset. This time my Raptor won with a 108.1, and that's again around the 3,500 mark, whereas Husky's Mercedes did a 108.8, and there was only, what, 0.7? In fact, it was exactly 0.7 of a second difference in our lap times, yet almost over 3,000 positions. That's a lot of positions to have lost in that.
That's the thing with these. I don't know why it says I'm running auto, though. I'm looking at that and it says
I
auto.
wondered
I'm
that
like,
actually.
what? I'm running
If you
manual.
watched whatever video it was, we explained why Husky's running ABS. But were you running just manual by accident, possibly? I don't know. That's odd.
I don't know.
Yeah,
No, I'm running ABS
Yeah.
because my finger's all manky.
I don't know
but,
what's
yeah.
up with that one. It could possibly be a bug, but or
I
maybe
don't
Husky's
know.
forgot to
I
put manual and
confused,
clutch on.
'cause, yeah, I was having a
Anyway,
handful.
we go on to the final times. This is at the Sedona Club Circuit. My Versa got to 2,175th. I'm pretty damn impressed with that.
Just
thing.
monstered
It beat an
everything.
Alpha GTA, a Honda Civic. Haha, I beat a Honda.
And
I'm
a
glad for
Civic.
that. And I was only a little bit slower than Daniel in a racing Mini. Husky, didn't fare so well with the El Camino.
Yeah, I was
That's
just a little
3
bit
seconds
further down.
slower in
Just a little bit.
10,828. Still, it could. I'm sure you are.
But I'm faster than a
That is
Subaru
true.
22B.
You were quicker than a
So-
Subaru and a Volvo. So not a complete failure
Volvos.
for the El Camino. But yeah,
Volvos.
we always knew the El Camino was likely to struggle. However, that Versa is. I can't believe how quick that thing is.
Surprising.
After this, I did take it online racing,
Win that.
and I embarrassed a few lobbies by winning in a Versa.
We're now going to see in all the verses of the community that we do in B class, it's just going to be a sea of verses.
Nah, now we've started
all
something.
of the
yeah.
verses.
Anyway, there we go. We got pretty high up on the leaderboards, considering what the cars we were using and the lack of time we had
Considering, yeah.
to sort of tune and prepare them, and the fact we hadn't driven the tracks very often. I think we did pretty damn well in that. So yeah, that Versa though, I'm going to put the tune for that Versa on the storefront, on the FailRace storefront. If you want to go have a go with it, please do feel free and see what you can do with it. It really is a very, very good car, and I wasn't expecting to say that ever about a Versa. Anyway, that is it for today. So thank you very much for watching. As I said earlier, if you want to have a go at building a racing Camino, see if you can do a better job than we can, or than anyone in the Versa community so far has done. You can submit them to us on our forums. If you go under official events, it will all be in there. So yeah, that is it for today. So until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.